and it's my privilege to call upon Comrade Marcus Garcia, representing the Venezuelan Embassy, to give a message of solidarity.
Thank you, Comrade. On behalf of the government of Venezuela and the people of Venezuela, I would like to congratulate this wonderful meeting and the Great Britain Communist Party, Marxist-Leninists, for all the effort that you have been making to promote values that seems to be forgot in the present times. The Venezuelan Revolution is, as all the revolution, different. It's different in many ways. We began to fight very hard in 1989 with El Caracazo, where 3,000 people were killed on the streets. At that time, the end of history was declared, so the end of socialist movements. And in Latin America, you know, it began to develop a very strong movement because we have previous experiences, like the Cuban experience, like the experience we have in Chile, which was very negative, and then the Sandinist experience that were crushed, the Sandinistas, with a war of 10 years. We always look at the October Revolution because, you know, it's like the first revolution where workers have the possibility to be in power. That's quite interesting. In Venezuela, we discussed, for instance, how we're going to manage the property, how we're going to administrate the public enterprises, the role of the working class, the nationalization of main industries, how we're going to use the income produced by oil, how we're going to include most of the people that have been excluded by the capitalist system. That kind of discussion were very important during the October Revolution. And it's the same thing in Venezuela, but the present time is quite different, you know. We don't have the Soviet Union, or the U.S. believes that they are the world power, that they have the right to do whatever they want. And, you know, in the case of Venezuela, the communist movement was organized in 1931, the Communist Party of Venezuela. And in 1958, we defeated a dictatorship. It was the first opportunity we have to be in power of a worker movement. And Social Democrat made some commitment, and Social Christian made some commitment with the U.S. Social Democrats split. There was another left organization, more movement toward the left, and the Communist Party. They have strong influence in 1960 in the workers' movement, but we were crushed by the right wing at that time, with the support of the U.S. The experience they have with the McCarthy's period. It was exactly the same thing in Venezuela at that time. And they used Venezuela as a platform to attack the Cuban Revolution. They developed a new organization in Venezuela to work at international level against the Cuban Revolution. But, you know, then the left was divided, which is not a surprise. As in most of the Western countries, the left is very divided. That was the situation in Venezuela in the 70s. And there was some new development. President Chavez began to work in the army, organizing in underground. He kept working in the army during 20 years, organizing without any public activity. He decided to organize a movement in 1992. And in February 1992, then in November 1992, there was another military movement that made the political situation in Venezuela quite different, because we have a new actor, a guy from the army, that claimed he was a leftist, and nobody believed him, because most of the army people in Latin America were right-wingers, you know. So it was difficult for President Chavez at the beginning to convey his message, because most of the time people from the right wing came to him to see how he was going to work with him. It was funny at the beginning. And yes, you know, he had the possibility to organize a national movement in which all the different organizations decided to participate, the left organization. They were very divided. He worked with the left in the 70s and in the 80s. But he said, left organizations in Venezuela don't have any understanding of our reality. They keep talking about the revolution outside Venezuela, but we have a revolution here. We have to talk about our tradition. We have to talk about Simon Bolivar. We have to talk about Zamora. You know, he have a lot of differences with the left at that time. He explained, he make it possible for the left movement in Venezuela to understand our own revolutionary tradition, which is very important, you know, because it's important to know the international tradition, but if you want to organize a revolution, you need to know what you're going to do in your country. You need to know your country, the tradition of your country, the fight that you have, the people that have been participating, you know. It was like an operation of the right wing to erase the revolutionary Venezuelan tradition. It was very powerful. We liberated in the 19th century 5 countries in Venezuela. It was difficult at the beginning to organize the liberation of Venezuela. We keep fighting and fighting, and it was horrible in Venezuela. Almost a third of the population died in that war since 1810 to 1819. A third of the population. It was the most horrible war in Latin America. But once we defeated the Spaniards in Venezuela, we went all around South America and defeated them in all the countries, in Colombia, Panama, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and we were thinking about going to Brazil, but we couldn't because, you know, too big for us at that time. So that was a powerful tradition, you know. We recovered the tradition, we reorganized. We decided to go through the electoral process because the economic situation was very bad. The right wing was very weak. And, you know, President Chavez had made a first statement in 1992. And he said during the election in 1998 that if he was not able to win the election, then the way to get into power to Venezuela will be armed. You know, he won't. And we keep reorganizing all the economy. We reorganize the political system. We change the legal system, the courts. We faced a coup d'etat in 2002 in February, and after that, we changed all the leadership of the army. Then oil sabotage in December 2002, and we reorganized all the oil industry, and we keep going, you know, increasing participation of the people supporting. But after the death of President Chavez in 2013, we have been facing in the previous year a very strong attack, specifically targeting our finances and the oil production. You know, the U.S. increased the oil production from 6 million barrels per day to 9 million, almost 10 million barrels per day using fracking technology. So they destroy the value of oil in the market at international level. That affected Venezuela. At the same time, the right wing, they control almost 70% of the distribution of food in Venezuela. And they use the control that they have in a similar way to what they did in Chile to attack the distribution. Because, you know, in terms of political discourse, they cannot compete with the revolution because they don't offer anything. And you can look at that in Argentina and in Brazil, what the right wing is doing there, just destroying all the social system that have been built during many years by the progressive government. So they cannot offer a different agenda different from neoliberal agenda. They decided to destroy the economy. That strategy worked, and they managed to win the election, the National Assembly, in December 2015. They got the majority of the National Assembly, and they claim that it was just a matter of time to oust President Maduro, and they say 6 months to oust President Maduro. In January, they began to discuss the way. They didn't agree in any. They have many ways. They don't know what to do. Oh, let's do this, let's do that. Finally, they decided to approve some law, like the amnesty law, where they say, well, all the crimes that have been committed since 1999 up to the time in which the law is approved will be erased. Everybody is free. Corruption, drug trafficking, killing, destruction of public property, everything in the law was forbid. then they approved another law, the housing law. We have been building a lot of housing, more than 1 million houses we have right now of social interest. And the main objective of this law was just to appropriate all the houses and make a business from the houses that the government have been building during all these years. So the problem they have is that Venezuela is not a parliamentary democracy, it's a presidential democracy. That was the problem. So we have different power. We have the Supreme Court, we have the president, we have another power. And the Supreme Court declared the laws they approved illegal, without any right to be established as a law in Venezuela. So they decided, after 4 months of discussion, to initiate the recall referendum that is in the Constitution. At the half of the period, you have the possibility to organize a recall referendum to target any public official, elected public official. So they began to work on that. And they managed to collect 1% of signature, that is the first requirement to organize a recall referendum. And that 1%, in that 1%, they 1.9 million signature, about 30% of the signature were illegal. Dead people that don't have right to vote, people that was not registered, everything. And dead people, there were like 11,000, almost 11,000 dead people signed the request for the recall referendum. So the court, there was different legal procedure organized for the revolution, because Venezuela is a democracy. They have the right to call for the recall referendum. We have the right to be against that, and use all the legal resources we have to avoid that recall, because we support President Maduro. So we went to the court, and the court said that in 5 states that they have to stop the process of recollecting signature to approve the recall referendum because there were some legal issues. After that, it was just small. Well, before that, the U.S. decided to renew the decree against Venezuela, declaring Venezuela a national threat of the U.S. And also, they try in the Organization of American States to apply to Venezuela the democratic charter that is a way to isolate Venezuela in the region. So they were defeated in the Organization of American States. They were defeated in the organization of the recall referendum. And they claimed, we're going to organize a national strike to top President Maduro. We're going to declare that President Maduro is not the president of Venezuela in the National Assembly, the same way in which they did in Brazil. But the law in Venezuela is quite different from the law in Brazil. They don't have that possibility in Venezuela. And the strike they organized, nobody participated. Almost 95% of the country was totally normal. And they decided to organize a demonstration to go to the presidential palace to talk to the president and in some way to take the power that way. We told them, you don't have possibility to reach the presidential palace. We don't want to be involved in a violent situation. We think that we need to discuss the political situation that we have here. And because of that, they split. The radical trying to organize the demonstration, they couldn't. The less radical go through the way to discuss with the government. We are right now discussing with how we're going to manage the situation with the participation of 3 former presidents and the Pope Francisco. So we're discussing right now the situation. We have been working very hard during the first period of the year, trying to overcome the economic situation. We developed a CLAP, that is a local committee for distribution and production. It's an organization in which all the community organizations participate to fight against the economic war. I guess that right now the right wing is in a very weak situation because they don't have the power to change the government. They don't have the support of the army. They have the support of the U.S., but in the multilateral system, they have been defeated. They tried even in the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, and they got the support of 28 countries, and we got the support of 76. So they were defeated there too. And that's more or less the situation. It's hard in the sense that we are facing a very difficult situation, but it's good in the sense that we have strong support and the movement have been reorganized and the leadership have been consolidated. And well, we're doing the best we can to fight the imperialists in our country and to show them that they cannot do whatever they want in our region, as they did in Brazil and Argentina. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Marcus Garcia, for your message of solidarity on this great occasion. I really have to just, maybe this Pope is very good, and every time the Holy Father is called upon to settle international questions, it always reminds me of an anecdote at the end of the Second World War where Churchill suggested that His Holiness, the Pope, should be invited to the peace conference. Whereupon Joseph Stalin said, how many divisions did he have fighting in the Second World War? You have the fighting capability. What has His Holiness to do with it? And when it comes to human rights, I heard the news last week that Saudi Arabia had been elected to this body with a thumping vote, United States voting for Saudi Arabia as the upholder of human rights. You most of the time hear of jihadis beheading people, but Saudis do a pretty good job of beheading. I mean, they could actually run a school on how to do the beheading.
It's called ISIS.
So that's if it wasn't really so sick and tragic, it would be laughable to talk about Saudi Arabia. They don't allow women to drive. No woman can go out on her own unless she's accompanied by a man. And that man could be a 6-year-old boy. She's got to be with it. They cannot express themselves. They cannot have any representation. They are bombing funerals. They are bombing hospitals in Yemen. They're doing all sorts of things. They're bombing their own people in the eastern part of the country. And yet Saudi Arabia, of course, is a champion of human rights. And the only champion it has is last year it bought $20 billion worth of weaponry from the United States. That's good money. And that really, for imperialism, there's only one human right. The right of one person to exploit another and one nation to exploit other nations. Other than that, the rest of the stuff is guff, it's rubbish, it's hypocritical cant, nothing else when it comes from the mouth of imperialists. I'd like to